All right, where we did see the Prime Minister in something of a reversal on certain elements of his carbon tax plan. The party is in trouble in the polls, certainly in parts of Atlantic Canada, not doing very well at all, as we heard from Nick Nanos a little earlier here in the show. So what does it mean? Is this political panicking or not? Is this smart political recalibrating? Let's bring in our MPs. Conservative Andrew Scheer from the Saskatchewan riding of Regina-Qu'Appelle, of course, former Conservative Party leader, of course. Also Liberal Scott Joyce, who's joining us. He represents the Nova Scotia riding of Kings Hants. And Rachel Blaney on the other side of the country. She's a New Democrat from British Columbia, the riding of North Island Powell River. Andrew, let me start with you here. What the Prime Minister did, the reversal, your takeaway.
Well, this is nothing but a gimmick to try to save a desperate Prime Minister. Nothing has really changed in the year that it's been since Liberals voted against a Conservative motion to remove the carbon tax from home heating, except for Justin Trudeau's terrible polling numbers. Liberal MPs lined up against our common sense plan to remove the carbon tax from home heating over a year ago. You might remember a senior Liberal minister, Seamus O'Regan, telling Canadians that he was sick and tired of hearing their complaints about higher home heating costs. So this is just a gimmick, a pause for the next few years until after the next election, when Justin Trudeau won't need the votes of Atlantic Canadians, but he'll still need their money. And then he's going to keep raising it. The plan is for the carbon tax to quadruple. People will still pay it on their food, on everything they buy that has to be trucked in or shipped in from somewhere else in the world. So this will do nothing for 97% of Canadians who will still be paying the carbon tax on their home heating. And of course, the second carbon tax, which is coming into force, Justin Trudeau announced that he's going to continue with that. So still lots of pain, extremely little gain, and 97% of Canadians won't even benefit from it. So this is all about Justin Trudeau trying to protect his Liberal-held seats in one region of the country, and I think Canadians are going to see right through it.
Well, let's go to Scott Bloy. Scott, you represent Kings Hants, a Liberal stronghold, for many years, almost 20, give or take. How concerned are you about the carbon tax, though, hurting your party in Atlantic Canada?
Well, first of all, you can get my name right. It's Cody Blois, but you might be thinking about my predecessor, Scott Bryce.
Oh, of course, yes, who served for many years. Yeah.
What I'm here to tell you is, listening to Mr. Scheer on his opening, it's no wonder why he didn't become Prime Minister, because the Conservatives, now 4 years later on from his election in 2019, still don't have an environmental plan whatsoever. I'm here to tell you that the adjustments that we made to the National Carbon Pricing Plan yesterday was driven by the Atlantic Liberal Caucus. And the fundamental difference that we have between the Conservatives is we believe in the carbon price as an effective tool to actually fight climate change. The Conservatives don't. They want to get rid of carbon pricing across the country, but offer no other details. I contrasted that yesterday with the fact that today, the announcement yesterday was about leading on affordability, but also making sure that we're focused on environmental progress. And I just quickly want to talk about the program. We doubled the rural rebates. By the way, that helps Andrew Scheer's constituents in Saskatchewan. We're pausing home heating oil across the country. And of course, we're coming up with a pilot program to build on the national program that already existed in the fall of 2022. So there is federal dollars across the country to help people make this transition. The difficulty in the Atlantic is, of course, we are really disproportionately impacted, and we're working in a way to help support Canadians and Atlantic Canadians at a time that they really need it.
Just quickly, Cody, though, what do you hear from your constituents in your riding about the carbon tax? What's the number one thing that they say to you about it?
We had a summer of absolute environmental challenge. We had Hurricane Fiona back in 2022. We had the worst forest fires in the history of the country, and we had flash flooding that actually, unfortunately, we lost 4 constituents in my riding. People believe in the importance of environmental progress, but what I heard loud and clear far before July 1st, 2023, and if you go check the Hansard record, I have been on record of saying that the intent is the right one, but we need to make adjustments to ensure this policy resonates in regional and rural Canada and has more equity. And that's what this is about today. It's not a retreat on climate. It's a pragmatic policy to ensure that this resonates better across the country, including in places like Saskatchewan and Alberta and in rural areas of Atlantic Canada. And we're offering solutions to actually help people get off home heating oil. It's a win for the environment, it's a win for affordability, it's a win for the economy.
Okay, to Rachel. Rachel, your read on what we've seen in the last day or so.
Well, I think it is really important that we respect that Canadians are really struggling. making ends meet is just getting harder. And so a process like this doesn't really meet the needs of Canadians across the board. The NDP has been asking repeatedly to see GST removed from all heating costs. So for example, in British Columbia, carbon tax, whatever you want it, carbon pricing, that is the jurisdiction of the provincial government. It has nothing to do with the federal government. But we know people are struggling everywhere across the country. And as a person that represents a more rural riding, we know that people in more rural, remote, especially northern climates, really need to make sure that they have housing heat. And there's a lot of ways of getting that heat. So we're saying take off the GST so that everyone across the country gets a bit of a benefit. It will make a difference. But coming from a province that also has seen huge forest fires, communities completely destroyed by flash floods, we know we need to be dealing with the environment. And if we don't, it's going to have a devastating impact on our local communities, the economy, and on people. So we need to be attacking this from all fronts, which means serious action. So hopefully we can see this government step up for every Canadian across this country, really look at affordability and help people out in a meaningful way. And GST across the board will make the biggest impact.
Back to Andrew in Regina. Andrew, recent polling from our pollster Nick Nano shows your party ahead by about 15 points right now, still a long way away from an election. How much of an issue do you think, bigger picture, this carbon tax is for voters? What do you hear?
Well, we hear all the time that people understand that the carbon tax is not an environmental plan. It's a tax grab. The carbon tax hasn't allowed the Liberal government to hit a single environmental target it set for himself. So it's really the worst of both worlds. You know, it consumes a lot of the government's main policy focus, and it fails to achieve any environmental gain. It's all pain and no gain. And you know, I'd ask Cody why he voted against this very policy just 1 year ago. If it, you know, the only thing that's changed really in terms of the outcome of this policy is that the polling numbers are tanking for the Liberals. So that's what's leading to the about face. And when it comes to the rebate works out to about $11 a month on average across the country. For the people in Saskatchewan and in Southern Ontario and across the prairies in British Columbia, that's not even going to cover the GST that the Liberal government charges on top of the carbon tax. So, you know, we know that Canadians are focused on the cost of living. We know they're being punished at the pumps. They're being punished at the grocery store. We know the carbon tax adds to costs all along the way. It taxes the farmer who grows the food, the trucker that ships the food, the grocer that sells the food. We know that the rebate doesn't cover the entire cost of the carbon tax. Justin Trudeau's own budget watchdog said that when the Liberals calculated their rebate, they ignored all the knock-on effects. It only covered the direct cost of the carbon tax, none of the cascading effects that happens when a carbon tax is applied throughout the supply chain on every single good that we have to have grown or shipped in from somewhere else in the world. So, and we know that Justin Trudeau will keep rising it, will keep hiking it. The plan is for the carbon tax to quadruple when you add in the second carbon tax that's coming into force. So every way you look at it, this is a massive increase on the cost of living for Canadians. Canadians are going to food banks in record number. We're seeing sizes in grocery stores shrink for products. We're seeing malnutrition rearing its ugly head in low-income families because the cost of food is getting so great. And Justin Trudeau's only solution is to offer nothing to 97% of Canadians and just a temporary pause with plans to hike it after the next election. Canadians are going to see through this.
All right, let's go to Cody. Cody, there's lots to respond there. Take it away.
Boy, I hope you'll give me time. A couple things that I think are extremely important is, again, as I said in Ottawa yesterday when we made this announcement, the government is walking a careful balance between affordability measures. By exempting the carbon price for home heating fuel, it's going to represent about $300 of savings for the average family in Atlantic Canada, and of course those elsewhere in the country that also benefit from this program. Rachel talked about, of course, making sure that we're supporting Canadians across the country. Of course we're doing that. That's why we launched a $250 million heat pump program last fall. So there is federal money in every corner of this country, including in Mr. Scheer's riding, where he should be directing his constituents to actually help make the transition off home heating fuel to reduce their energy costs and to be able to make savings. And at the end of the day, I've been here in Atlantic Canada. This is about my 10th interview. And consistently what I remind Atlantic Canadians and all Canadians is that the leader of the official opposition has been in power now for over a year. Not one single iota of how he is going to balance environmental progress. He's shown no vision, no plan, and no ability to actually do that. Canadians in this time are expecting affordability and environment to go hand in hand, and that's exactly what the government offered yesterday. Of course, on carbon pricing itself, the Bank of Canada has made very clear that it is a small, marginal, in fact, 30 cents of $100 worth of groceries, 30 cents is tied to the carbon price. So at the end of the day, even if we head it the Conservatives' way and we cut it, great, 30 cents out of 100, there's other broader affordability challenges, and the government is looking at a variety of measures. But on this one, we're walking a careful balance, and I think we're getting it right.
Last word goes to you, Rachel, on this. Your thoughts?
Well, I think one of the things that both parties is forgetting is a big part of the cost of groceries is due to corporate greed. We're seeing businesses like Loblaws bringing home an extra $1 million a year. During the pandemic, we saw a slow transfer of these businesses. So the carbon tax is not what is creating this. It really is corporate greed. So if we're going to get serious about making things affordable, we have to start seeing a government in place that will take on these big challenges and step up to CEOs who are walking away with huge profits while the everyday Canadians are suffering. So we need to get serious. People are suffering. And I appreciate that there's programs in place for heat pumps and whatnot. But if you are in a low-income family, you cannot afford those upfront costs. So it really is disproportionately impacting low-income families. We need to see actual action for them. They deserve it.
It's good to see all three of you in the meantime, and thanks for taking time for Power Play. Rachel Blaney for the NDP, Cody Blois for the Liberals, Andrew Scheer for the Conservatives. Have a great weekend ahead.
Thanks so much.